It all began with Sheikh Abdullah, a man who rose from poverty to become a close friend of Nehru and subsequently the Prime Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. While Abdullah had previously supported the accession to India, it wasn't long after signing the Delhi Agreement in 1952 that he did a complete 180 and became an ambassador for the demand for self-determination of Kashmir. He became the man who tipped the scales and began unforeseen consequences long after he became inconsequential.
The Lion of Kashmir is restored to freedom. The sentences in other jails made it 10 years since he was charged with conspiracy against the state. Now the tall 59-year-old Sheikh Abdullah was unexpectedly a free man again.
He was released 11 years later and once again became the state's leader, this time as Chief Minister in 1975.
खुद मुख्तारी और सालमियत को बरकरार रखूंगा.
Though he was adamant on the demand for self-determination, he had to reconsider. Seeing that India would never relent on conducting a plebiscite in Kashmir, in 1975 he signed an accord with the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. The accord retained Article 370. This accord inadvertently set the platform for the beginning of the Islamization of Kashmir. It didn't help when Abdullah changed the names of 2,500 villages to reflect the Islamic sentiments in the state. Pakistan's ISI, which had made it their mission to communalize Jammu and Kashmir and indoctrinate the state to their beliefs. They had taken it upon themselves to spread Wahhabism in the state and weed out Sufism to make the state's demography similar to its own. As they slowly began gaining inroads into the state by the 80s, they mobilized groups like the JKLF and the Jamaat-e-Islami Kashmiri to latch on to the anti-India sentiments in the state. In 1984, things took a turn for the worst. Farooq Abdullah, the then Chief Minister, visited Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and shared the stage with JKLF. This move created quite a furor, as it was seen as Farooq supporting JKLF. Unimpressed, Indira Gandhi supported Farooq Abdullah's brother-in-law GM Shah in a political coup and replaced Abdullah with Shah as the CM. Since Shah's administration came to power without the support of the people, Shah appointed methods to win the populace over. In order to do that, he used the state's religious sentiments and gave Islamists and subsequently an anti-India rhetoric a platform. The last straw was when Shah constructed a mosque within the premises of a Hindu temple inside the civil secretariat, which caused Hindu-Muslim riots. To top it off, Shah returned with the statement, "Islam khatre mein hai." Once this rhetoric of a threat to identity was spread, the violence against Kashmiri Hindus began. Kashmiri Hindus were killed, their properties looted and houses burned. The Islamists united under the banner Muslim United Front to contest the elections in 1987. The widespread belief was that the elections were rigged, as reports of tampering with vote counts and arresting of candidates came forward. With the loss of elections and no response from the central government to their protests, the militants began the insurgency in Kashmir with a renewed vigor and targeted anyone with pro-India leanings. The Kashmiri Hindus ended up bearing the brunt of this growing unrest, as they were believed to be ambassadors of the mainland owing to their faith. For the Kashmiri Hindus, their already unsteady place in the state was further disrupted when in 1989, Pandit Tikalal Taplu, a BJP leader, was shot dead by the JKLF. By 1990, two separate Srinagar-based newspapers had published a message by the Hizbul Mujahideen threatening dire consequences to all Hindus if they did not leave the state. Not long after, streets saw posters adorning walls with menacing messages to all Kashmiris to follow Islamic laws and cultural norms. Hindu houses would wake up to find warnings posted on their front doors to leave the state. By now, over 300 Kashmiri Pandits had been killed, women abducted and raped, and the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits had begun.
दुखी इसलिए है कि इसकी 3 बेटियां हैं, बड़ी बड़ी बेटियां हैं, मैं भी इसकी एक बेटी हूँ। ये इसलिए रोती है, हम क्या करेंगे।
The next day, Jagmohan Malhotra was appointed the governor and raids were carried out throughout the state, seizing illegal weapons and weeding out militants. The day after that, protesters took to the streets raising anti-India slogans and were met with paramilitary forces. As the crowds began stone pelting, the security forces opened fire. In the aftermath, all semblance of a civil state was demolished as lawlessness wrecked the state, affecting the Kashmiri Pandits the most. The Hindus who survived this period of assault against them began fleeing the state.